So one thing that really moved me is that, when I did the Titanic experience here in Cove, it literally is held inside the White Star Line offices. That was the real offices when the Titanic sailed out of here for the very last time, and the first time, in 1912. And you're standing on the very ground that these people stood on for the very last time in their lives. And then they got on the tender boat, which then took them to the Titanic, waiting for them in the harbor. So it really is a moving experience to be on the exact same ground that these people stood on for the last time in their lives. And little did they know, in a very short time, they were going to die. This was a real moving experience to be in this city. And you can feel it everywhere in this city. It's Titanic, everything. And it's a real city. It's not it's not all touristy as you might think, even though there's a lot of dedication to the Titanic. There's also people who live and work here, and people are friendly here too, by the way, really friendly. So it's important to know how to pronounce the name of this city. It's pronounced Cove, like C-O-V-E, even though it's spelled C-O-B-H. The B-H is pronounced as a V. So the way you pronounce the city name is Cove. And it used to be known as the Cove of Cork, and then it changed its name to Queenstown, and now it's just Cove. But it doesn't look that way by the spelling, but that's the way you say it. So if you're arriving to Cove by cruise ship, as thousands do every day, you're going to arrive right here in front of the Cove Heritage Center, which, it's extremely convenient from the cruise ship. You can literally walk out the cruise ship and be right there. And it is something you want to consider checking out. You can learn about the potato famine, and you can learn about the Titanic, the Lusitania. I mean, this town has experienced a lot of tragedy, but it's really displayed really well inside this heritage center, and it's something you should consider doing if you're going to be in Cove. Also, right out of the cruise ship port is the train station. So if you want to go into Cork, it's super easy to do. But I would encourage you to consider hanging around in Cove if you only have one day and checking out the Titanic experience, and you'll be moved as I was, and many others are. And I would also encourage you, if you're going to do that, to book your tickets online the day before, because they only let 12 to 15 people go through at a time, and it's a really intimate experience. And if it fills up, it's too bad. You're going to miss it. The Titanic exhibit here is quite moving, actually, and I really enjoyed it. It actually exceeded my expectations. I didn't quite expect to like it as much as I did. Sailed here in its last port of call. People come here by the thousands just to see the last place that the Titanic docked. And the actual dock is still here, even though it's 100 and something years old. And you can have a look at it right here, and it's just quite amazing. So this is the actual dock that the tender boats boarded their passengers to bring to the Titanic, waiting in the harbor. And this is the actual White Star offices in 1912, and then currently as of today. So on April 11th, 1912, in this very building, the White Star Line building, in Queenstown, as it was known back then, is now called Cove. 123 passengers were waiting to join the ship bound for New York. Of the 123 passengers who boarded that day here in Cove, only 44 survived the journey, and when the Titanic struck its iceberg and sank in the early hours on April 15th. 79 were lost, and today, you know, they taught us all about the passenger stories that boarded here in Cork, or Cove. So I can't say enough good things about the process in which they conducted this Titanic experience. So it's very small and intimate, you know, only around 12 to 15 passengers at a time. And I call them passengers because what they do is they give you a ticket to enjoy the experience, but you actually get a ticket, an original ticket of a passenger who boarded that day in 1912. I happen to become Bernard McCoy, who was a third class passenger who got on the ship that day, and I experienced it as if I was Bernard, and I went through the whole building and then boarded the tender boat as Bernard would have done in 1912. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Bernard McCoy in a bit, but right now let's just cross the street and go grab a scone and a hot Americano and relax for a minute after that fantastic Titanic experience. So I've got to be honest with you, when I first stumbled on this little cafe, I thought it was going to be a touristy place ready to grab your money and just be all touristy and everything, but I was wrong. This place was awesome. The people were so friendly, so nice, so kind. I got invited to sit with a local couple. I really had a great experience hanging out here, and it just made my day. So the entire existence of this city is all about the sea and seafarers and ships and everything, and much of it's quite sad actually, but it's a little overshadowed by the Titanic. But you also should know that this city was responsible for helping out the victims of the Lusitania, which was I think just 3 years after the Titanic. So really amazing history with the ocean here. Okay, so right out there in the harbor between those two pieces of land is where the Titanic was waiting for the tender boats to arrive with the passengers that it just picked up at the building I just took you through, the White Star Line building. And so the passengers got off the tender boats and then onto Titanic right there, right in this very spot. So this particular pub and many others just like it are quite famous because what happened back in that era in the 19th century was many Irish families having to say goodbye to their brothers, their sisters, or their friends who were emigrating to the United States. It was like a funeral to them, and they would hold a farewell party here, which was not only a congratulations, but also extremely sad because they often knew this is going to be the last time I'll see them as they boarded the ships to leave Ireland for a better opportunity. So let me finish telling you about Bernard McCoy, who I was as I entered the Titanic experience. I became Bernard. So he was a 24-year-old guy, and he was a third-class passenger, and he was traveling with his emigrated sisters, Alice and Agnes, who had returned from America to bring him back to America. And while his sisters entered lifeboat number 16 on the Titanic, Bernard was refused entry and was left on the sinking ship. He entered the ice-cold water only to be pulled to safety when his sisters recognized him shortly after the ship had gone under. And after the sinking ship, the siblings went on to stay with their brother in Brooklyn, and throughout his life, Bernard suffered a series of health problems and developed a permanent stutter. But he survived, and he served in the United States Army for a time in World War I, where he was exposed to poisonous gas. And after the war, he'd found employment with one of the crews building the Lincoln Tunnel. And Bernard finally retired to the Veterans Administration Hospital in the Bronx, and he died in 1945. So again, I loved the Titanic experience. To me, this was a really moving experience.
So this is clearly the most famous thing about Cove, other than the Titanic. Everyone wants to come here and get their photo at this spot. And, I've enjoyed it. It's a peaceful town. It's a quiet town. It's a real town. It's a real town with real people. And, it's not all made up for tourists everywhere. It's actually, it's a real town is what I'm saying. People actually live and work here.
So towards the end of the day, I found a cozy spot right here near this pub, and there was a good place to sit. And actually there was, and you're going to see it in a second, there was a memorial to the Lusitania. So as if this town hasn't experienced enough tragedy with the Titanic, just 3 or 4 years later, it rescued many, many people from the Lusitania, who also sunk and was a huge tragedy in this part of the world. But you'll see that right here. And but what a good spot to hang out. What a great day I had in Cove. What a great experience. Just really, I really enjoyed the people and the opportunity to pay my respects to the Titanic and the people who helped give me this opportunity to know more about it. But it's kind of sad that the Titanic even overshadows the Lusitania, which is equally as sad as a disaster. But hang out with me for a bit. So I really hope you've enjoyed my experience here in Cove, as well as me taking you through the Titanic experience. But I'm also hoping that you'll check out some of my other adventure videos all around the world. It doesn't matter where you're going. I've probably got a video that'll help you out, whether it's in Canada or New Zealand or Australia or perhaps the South Pacific. Maybe it's Bangkok or the Philippines or Bali or Japan or wherever. I've got some great videos. I'd like to take you along for the ride with me, and I'm sure that my videos will help you enhance your experience, even if it's just an armchair view. But hang out with me again, and thanks for joining me today, and I hope you'll give this video a like, and I look forward to seeing you soon. All right, thanks so much.